You want more black people to get out of jail? Y'all sit for jury duty. That's what you do. Stop trying to pretend like your mama's sick and you got to go to work and you got a medical condition that won't let you sit for jury. Stop ignoring. That's what you do.
Willie D Live.
The reason why we're here is because you have white guys like Austin Metcalf who think that their whiteness self-deputizes them. They think that they have control over black bodies and they can make black people do this and that. Move, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. Let me see your key. I've never seen you around here. Get away from here. Get from under here. Move around and all this type of stuff. And that is a big problem all around this country, and that needs to be addressed too. See, you can't address one without addressing the other. If Austin has respect for Karmelo and his right to exist and not try to become the damn tent enforcer, we're not here. And it's a lot of dudes that do that. A lot of these dudes behave that way because they believe the system is going to protect them. And they also believe that black people will not fight back. That is the reason why he did it in the first place. You don't see black people doing that. You never hear about black people walking up to white people saying you don't belong here.
I hear black people walking up to black people saying you don't belong here.
You're right about that. And that's bad.
Look, Willie, I'm not. Bullying has been around since.
You're absolutely right about that.
Bullying has been around. This is not something that's germane to one race or other. Look, it's part of human nature. We got kids who are bullies. Oftentimes, kids who are bullied themselves. But the way you fix a bully is you punch them right in the nose and then they learn their lesson. Now, we can't do that like we used to do it back in the day. So go ahead and call the police and put some people on them. But the bottom line is there's plenty of racial issues we can talk about. But this issue, I think the adults have injected race into this. I think the adults who play the racist game, these are two young men. I mean, both of them play football. They play for opposite teams. Karmelo Anthony wasn't just under the tent being quiet. He was under there talking stuff, so he wasn't scared. Look, let me tell you, we always talk about Karmelo was scared. Karmelo was under there saying, touch me again. That don't sound like scary to me. That sounds like I wish you would to me.
He don't have to be a coward to defend himself.
Yeah, but it don't mean he was afraid. So you can't say I was afraid for my life if you weren't afraid. That's the thing. And that's why the whole self-defense, if you're afraid for your life to the point that you have to use deadly force to protect your life, that's one thing. But Karmelo Anthony, and that's just one little piece of evidence. I'm sitting in here, I'm under this tent, I'm talking stuff. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Your team is ass. That's what he said about Austin Metcalf's football team, and he played for another team. And then he said, touch me again. That don't sound like fear to me. I know what fear sounds like, and that doesn't sound like fear. And so, this is what the jury heard. And so we always have to go back to, was this verdict valid? Did they have evidence to substantiate the elements necessary to prove murder? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes, and it's going to remain yes. Now we can pick apart what they saw, what weight they gave each piece of evidence. But the question is, when the appellate court looks at this, they're going to say, well, we think that the verdict is valid. Now, had you had 2 or 3 black jurors on there, you might have got a holdout. They may have come to a determination. Look, we don't believe murder, but we will agree with manslaughter. So we can come to that consensus and get a unanimous agreement. We'll do manslaughter. That's the point of having a black juror in there, because it only takes one to hold out to get a hung jury. And so had you had 3 black people on the jury, and remember, this wasn't an all-white jury. I think it wasn't an all-white jury. It was other people, but my understanding was no black people. But that's why they wanted to get rid of the black jurors, because they might have held out for manslaughter. There was no way this young man was going to be exonerated and go home that day. He was going to go to prison. The question was manslaughter or murder. A black juror may have made them hold out, and you're going to sit in this room. We're not going to be here for 4 hours. We're going to be here for 4, 5, 10, 15 days. And when you have somebody who kicks back on their heels, plants their feet in the sand, say, no, I don't believe it's murder. I believe he was self-defense. We can do manslaughter. And then, but that was the reason why they wanted to get rid of those black juries. And that's why I think it'll be overturned. But that's the only reason. I think the verdict was valid. However, the jury played a part in it. And as they always say, you know the outcome of a case after voir dire, after the jury is impaneled. And in this particular case, same thing with O.J. Simpson. We knew what was going to happen once we saw the jury. It was over, acquittal. So, and that's the magnificence of the practice of law. The case is typically won when the jury is impaneled, and that's things people don't know. So you want more black people to get out of jail? Y'all sit for jury duty. That's what you do. Stop trying to pretend like your mama's sick and you got to go to work. And you got a medical condition that won't let you sit for jury. Stop ignoring. That's what you do.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the jury put more weight on video evidence or eyewitness testimony?
I don't know, man, and I don't think that they. I don't think they questioned the jury after the jury polled. It's called poll. I don't think they polled the jury after the jury left. I'm sure at some point some of these jurors will come up with a book and we'll know what happened, because typically on all these famous cases is always somebody who does an interview. But I'm not sure. I don't know what the jury did, but I know that there was enough evidence for them to convict. That's what I do know. And that's my only point. Was there enough evidence for the jury to convict? Was there enough valid, admissible evidence for the jury to convict? And that's the question that I look at. And my answer is yes. There was, and you see what they did. Again, the only question is whether or not this was going to be manslaughter or murder. They elected murder. So that's the difference.
Sounds like you think that he was overcharged.
I think it was a range. I think it was a range. I think it could have been manslaughter and it could have been murder. I think capital murder would have been overcharging. I do think that, because it wasn't premeditated. He didn't kill multiple people. He wasn't in the commission of committing some aggravated crime. The victim wasn't under the age of 10. So that would have been overcharging. In this case, it was a range. And that's why they have something called lesser included charges. You charge them with murder on the indictment. And then a lesser included charge is manslaughter, which I believe the judge laid out in the in the jury charges. So it was included, but they didn't want manslaughter. They saw murder. That's it. And this is where we are. I know it, man. Look, good kid. The boy had no history, a criminal record, good grades. He was a good kid, but this is what happens. And this is the problem with emotionalism. And this is why we got to teach our sons to control. They say, I'm going to say something. This real chauvinist. I'm about to say it's going to be real chauvinist. I don't care if they don't like me. But back in the day, we were taught boys don't cry. And now at this age, I understand why why the old people used to teach little boys don't cry. Little girls can cry. Little boys can't cry, because if you allow them to fully embrace all those emotions, sadness is not the only one. Anger comes with that. Fear comes with that. And the reason we don't want men in our society, all men, to just always embrace their emotions, because they'll go too far with it. Now you got an emotional man, whether he's angry, whether he's fearful, whether he's sad, he's going too far. And this is why we limit our boys in this society to control their emotions. And that's part of the training. And this is what I've taught my sons. This is a hard lesson that a lot of men have to learn. Bro, I know one thing. I know, Karmelo been in there a week. And if some of them OGs would take him under his wing, they'll say, son, at least you got a date. Because some of us got 250 years. We never getting out of here. You got a date. On top of that, you young, so you're going to get out of here and you're going to still be a baby. You're going to be 35 years old. You up for probation. So, and they're also going to say if he's willing to talk about it, because I'm sure he's been in there crying. You know how that is. Look, man, I'm going to tell you something, man. I worked in Lake Charles, Louisiana as a law clerk. And they would just bring bodies in. I work for a black judge now, and his name was Judge Wilford Carter. He's famous over there. 5 o'clock, he goes home. 5 o'clock, they go with that man in that gray van. And I would see literally thousands of young men of all colors every year getting football numbers. and we go to lunch, come back, here goes some more football. It don't mean anything to these people. This is a process. The criminal justice system is an animal that needs to be fed, and they're going to throw bodies in there. And what they do is throw people in there who can't control themselves, and they throw people in there who are undesirable. You see, and you can read into that what you want. But the bottom line, when you get into that system, oftentimes there are OGs in there who will sit down and talk to you and say, yeah, nephew, you should have controlled yourself, man. It wasn't worth it. You in here for some childhood schoolyard stuff. You in here for something. You got 35 years for something that you could have just walked away from. And that's just good old fashioned common sense. Anybody who loves their child is going to tell them, look, man, walk away if you can. That don't mean you a punk. I done walked away from plenty. And I know you have too, because we wouldn't be here where we are. Anybody in the public who has a problem with that, they're here to see the circus. They're here to see the chaos. They don't care nothing about Karmelo Anthony's family. They don't care about Austin Metcalf. They just want to see a spectacle. And that's the truth. What you and I are doing right here, both fathers, is, we're speaking honestly. That you're as passionate about how you feel. And I'm just saying, bro, this is what the law says. I don't like to see that young black man dead, and I don't like to see that young white boy dead either. I don't want to see any children hurt like that, man. We need, we need to tone the rhetoric down, man. It's not getting any better. It's just making things worse. And so all I'm doing is coming here throwing some water on that fire that you've been spitting, bro. But hey, that's all I got, brother.
No, it's cool. It's cool. But I absolutely appreciate you speaking on the emotional thing, because there is we do have a huge issue with people, not just boys, but everybody in this country right now controlling their emotions. We got to absolutely start like getting into conflict resolution. We got to figure that out, how to resolve conflict, without fists, guns, and insults. So there you have it. But I appreciate you coming on, man. Any parting words?
Well, I appreciate everybody, and I know they've been giving me hell over on my page. I'm just gonna give it to you straight. Willie D brings me in here because I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm not gonna hold back. I don't want your money. I done had enough money in my life. I realize it's not gonna make me feel better when I'm sick. I don't do it I do it for the love of my people and Americans in general. I want to see us continue growing. It's a very young country that we live in. We're coming up on our 250-year anniversary. And the truth is, especially now, we got all these Europeans and folk coming from overseas. They say, man, America's great. We always look at these other countries like they so amazing. I'm not saying America is perfect, but it's imperfect, but we have to continue to live. We've been here in this land for 500 years, and we're going to have to try to figure out a way to get along. Otherwise, we're going to tear it up, and we don't have anywhere else to go. But man, shout out to you. I just got 100,000 subscribers on my my Dennis Spurling podcast, man, and that's pretty good. And I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate you having me on here, brother. And I know it's a passionate, hard to hear conversation, but it's been a long time coming, Willie. We need to deal with this in the black community. And I know people don't like to say this, but I'm gonna say it. This happened 100 times a day in the black community. A young black boy get emotional, or a black man gets emotional and murders another black man or hurts another black man or black woman. And now it's seeping over into the white community, and they not having it. And let's just deal with that. They not having it. They're not going for it. They're not going to give you a pass.
Yeah, but usually when black people do it to each other, the perpetrator goes, if the perpetrator can be identified, they're going to jail. And they're absolutely going to jail. But the reason
and that's what happened to Karmelo Anthony. The perpetrator went to jail. So why are we surprised?
Well, the reason why people are in such an uproar with this one is because they know that we're dealing with a biased system. We're dealing with a system that gives the white guy the benefit of doubt. Whereas if a black guy ends up in the system, they want his body warm or cold. It doesn't matter. They want that body warm or cold.
Yeah, that's true.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Spurling. Appreciate you, King. Thanks a lot. Always bringing that heat.